Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for Naperville Mayor. This event is being recorded. I am Susan Craighead, President of the League of Women Voters of Naperville. The League is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose candidates for public office. You can rely on the League to present fair and civil candidate forums where each candidate is allowed an equal chance to respond. Local elections typically have a much lower voter turnout than presidential or midterm elections. Yet it is the local elections that have real consequences in our day-to-day lives. In many ways, our local officials have the most impact on our city and our quality of life. I hope that your attendance here tonight means that you are making your plan for how you will cast your vote on or before Tuesday, April 4th. In addition to watching candidate forums live or recorded, you may also find candidate information on vote411.org, our nonpartisan online voter guide. All candidates have been invited to respond to questions, and their answers appear complete and unedited. Vote 411 is expected to be live by Friday the 24th, and a video of this candidate forum will be linked. And now, let me introduce our moderator for tonight, Jan Dorner.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome to the candidate forum put on by the League of Women Voters of Naperville. My name is Jan Dorner, and I am from the League of Women Voters of Elmhurst. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for verifying the accuracy of the statements that candidates make in this forum. This forum is for those seeking to be mayor of the city of Naperville. The term is 4 years. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. The purpose of a candidate forum is to allow voters an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues and stimulate public interest in the races. As this is a forum and not a debate, candidates must address the moderator, not each other. The moderator will enforce League rules. Each candidate will present a 2-minute introductory statement. The order determined alphabetically listed by last name. Then League and community generated questions will be asked, and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond in alternating order. Closing statements in continuing alpha rotation will be 2 minutes. A timer screen with periodic countdown will be visible to the candidates and moderator throughout the forum. Candidates will strictly adhere to the time limits. When you see the stop sign, you may finish your sentence. Tonight, our candidates are Scott Worley and Benny White. Tiffany Steffens was invited but will not attend. Candidates, please unmute and turn on your videos. Thank you. So tonight, let's start with the opening statement from Scott Worley. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you to the League for putting this together and for allowing Betty and I to share our vision for Naperville in this very, very important election. My name is Scott Worley. I'm running for mayor. I'm a lifelong Naperville resident, and I'm very excited about the potential in this race to create some great new leadership for our community. I want you to think about this forum tonight as a job interview for a very, very important job. The mayor is the ambassador. The mayor is the face of our city council. And I think the approach to interviewing somebody for a job is the best way to really evaluate a candidate and their qualifications. So getting right into it, I have 32 years as a part-time Park District police officer here in town. I've actually worked the streets of Naperville. I still do on a part-time basis. I enjoy the job. I enjoy working with Naperville citizens, but I will tell you that things have changed since I started 32 years ago. Naperville's gotten to be more dangerous, and it's something we got to keep an eye on. I want you to know that public safety is a participation sport. And when I talk about public safety, my police background certainly will contribute to that. I also run a business with over 200 employees. I put food on the table for a lot of people. I make a payroll every week. I negotiate union contracts. I understand what it takes to be a job creator. And when I talk about economic development and how that's so important for a thriving local economy, it takes somebody who does that, somebody who's a job creator, to have those conversations, to bring businesses here and keep them here. And lastly, I've been involved in banking for over 16 years. I serve on the board of a publicly held bank with $13 billion in assets. The people's money is something that I look at very, very carefully. And that's our $600 million budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Your opening statement, 2 minutes, Benny White.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the league for hosting today. I'd like to thank everyone else who's online who's observing today. My name is Benny White. I want to be a mayor, and I'm asking for your support and your vote on April 4th. I have lived here in Naperville for 18 years, but I'm originally not from here. I actually grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I am the son of a 27-year police officer, homicide police officer in Kansas City. And my mom was a hospital professional at one of our local hospitals. That is where I really learned a lot about myself, and my values were beginning to form through my parents. After I graduated high school, I was fortunate enough to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point, and I ended up serving 22 years in the United States Army, which further developed my value system. I can tell you that I did not plan on staying in the Army, but for 5 years, but I found out it was something bigger than myself, and I was able to serve my country. As far as my values, I'm all about loyalty, duty, honor, integrity, personal courage, selfless service. Those are the things that drive me. But after serving my country, I've served my community for the last 11 years. I've been on the Board of Education in Indian Prairie 204, where we worked with our young people and our kids to give them the best education. I've served on the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, where I'm happy to say that Naperville, once again, is the safest city in America. And for the last 6 years, I have been on the City Council. Since being on the City Council, we've lowered our debt, we balanced our budget, we ensured that we actually even lowered our tax rate here in the city of Naperville. I can tell you that my platform will be public safety and public health, as well as economic development and opportunity, and then good governance. Please visit my website at bennywhite.org to learn more about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question tonight goes to candidate White. What are the top 3 things voters should know about you which uniquely qualify you for this position? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you for the question. The things that qualify me is I've been working toward this for a very long time. I'm a leader. I've been leading soldiers as in the military. It's the thing that really drives me to be the person that I am today. As far as things that I want folks to know is that I've been doing this job for the last 6 years. That's just for the City Council, as I mentioned in my opening statement. I'm extremely excited about the work that we've been able to accomplish. If you look at where we are from an economic development standpoint, we've brought in businesses here in Naperville, things like an extra Costco, Amazon Fresh. Those are the things that have allowed us to keep our tax rate low for our residents. But I also recognize that we have work to do. We have work, especially over in the 204 school district area, that quite frankly are the individuals, the residents who are over there are actually paying a little bit more in taxes than they would be in the 203 area because there's low business over there. So I want us to be able to drive businesses to that area, work with our Naperville Development Partnership in order to do that. Thank you.
Same question, candidate Worley.
So again, I think when I talk about my experience, it's really unique. And I've never been in elected office before. However, I've always spent my life as a doer, right? 32 and a half years as a part-time policeman in here in town, 30 years running a business with hundreds of employees, negotiating contracts, 20 years on our Naperville Economic Development Board, bringing businesses and attracting new businesses and retaining businesses here in our community. 29 years as a liquor commissioner appointed by Mayor McCrane, again by Mayor Pradle, and again for Mayor Chirico. Those are some unique qualifications, and I've been serving our community for a long, long time, all in the idea of giving back because it was the right thing to do. I'm running as a nonpartisan candidate for a nonpartisan race, and I truly believe that's what Naperville needs right now, as we've seen so much division over time. But I also believe that we have some real challenges ahead. Our public safety, as you mentioned, yes, we are the safest place in America right now, statistically, but I don't want Naperville to be the safest place for people to do bad things. The world is changing. We've had over 100 illegally possessed guns taken off the streets in 2022. Those numbers continue to rise. We've got drive-offs happening from traffic stops. Those continue to rise. Those people who are being arrested for these things, that's not necessarily something we want to have happen in our community. And what I mean by that is these are convicted felons. These are folks that are on parole. They shouldn't have had those weapons in the first place. Why are they here in Naperville, and what did they come here to do?
Thank you. Candidate Worley, how do you see the mayor's role as differing from the role of city council members?
I think the mayor is the ambassador. I think the mayor can have an awful lot of opportunity to go out there and really bring people together. You know, the mayor in Naperville has to reach out beyond their comfort zone. They have to be the mayor for all of Naperville, not just one side or one faction or one party. We have to find those people who don't have a voice and bring them to the table. So I think the mayor's job, if done correctly, it's extremely important to make sure all of those things happen. Mayor Pradle is a near and dear friend of mine. And one thing I learned from him was how he found those people who did not have a voice. He always brought them to the table. And I admired it. I watched it from afar. I've tried to apply it in my own life, in my own business. I apply it when I go out on the street and do my police job. I think it's a great opportunity for mayors to try to emulate those types of backgrounds and to duplicate what works. So I think the other thing that the mayor can do is really advocate for our community at a different level. And what I mean by that is you've got to fight. You've got to fight for what's good for Naperville. And that might mean having conversations with the DuPage County Board or Will County Board or our downstate officials or even people in Washington, D.C. You know, they work for us, and we've got to make sure that it's not the other way around. So a mayor who's willing to go out there, express the needs for our community, and motivate those folks to give back to us with the right respect we deserve. That's very important as the #4 city in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate White, same question.
Thank you for the question. You know, the mayor is the leader of the community. The mayor is that leader. They are the ones who are representing the people. And quite frankly, I've been doing that since I've been an elected official. As a city councilman, I've actually been out and I've advocated for Naperville. But I think the mayor himself is that person that's going to go out and advocate for Naperville. Be that leader. Be that cheerleader that we saw Mayor Pradle be when he was here. The other thing that the mayor has to be able to do, and I have this experience, is understanding what the impacts of what we do in Naperville or what we do as a city, how it impacts other municipalities, how it impacts other government agencies within the city of Naperville. By being on the school board, being on the city council, I understand that when I make a decision as a council person, as a leader in the city, how it may potentially directly or indirectly impact our schools or our park districts or our neighbors themselves. The other thing that the mayor does is the mayor is the one who is going to appoint commissioners, people to commissions and committees here in the city of Naperville. That's their job. I want that to be a transparent process. I want the individuals who want to serve in our community, I want them to be qualified. I want the process to be transparent. And if we do that, I think we'll be okay. It's important, however, that those individuals are individuals who understand what our community is about, they understand what our mission statement is, and they want to live by that mission statement. That becomes extremely important. If someone, for me, does not understand that, I will not recommend them for a position here in the city. They've got to be part of what the city is about. They can come from different backgrounds, different political spectrums. I would love for them to come from different regions within the community as well, so we are well represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate White, one of the services Naperville provides to its residents is electric power, which comes primarily from burning coal. What approaches, if any, would you support to reduce or eliminate Naperville's reliance on coal power?
Sure. Right now, we are in a crisis as far as I'm concerned from an environmental standpoint. We get we're in a contract with the Illinois Municipal Electrical Agency, where 90% of the energy or electricity that they produce comes from coal. It's not good for our environment. So we need to make some changes in that area. I'm an advocate for solar power. Right now, we only can bring in about 2% of our electricity from solar because of the contract that we have with IMEA. But we're not even close to that. So we need to advocate to do that. And if we do get to 2%, we can always request to do more. We also understand that many of us are driving electric vehicles. I think we can advocate for more electric charging stations, but as we come through and we do developments, I think it's important that we tell our developers to more or less wire homes so that people, when they buy those cars, they'll be able to put in a charging station if they if they want to do that. So those are just a few things that we need to do. We have our IMEA contract that's coming up soon that we're going to have to make a decision if we're going to renew that or not. As of now, I'm not a fan of that. I think it's because for the reasons that I mentioned before. I think we need to look at alternative solutions. We need to maybe look at some of the other options that are out there and start seeing what they're doing as far as what it would cost if ComEd was our provider versus IMEA. Start doing those cost comparisons so that we can make a smart decision later on when it's time to renew that, to make a decision if we're going to renew that contract or not with IMEA. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, the same question.
Well, the IMEA contract, it sure wasn't a great deal for Naperville. Maybe at one time, but long-term, it certainly has had cost overruns. It hasn't been good for our community. And it's one of the reasons I think you got to have really experienced business people evaluating these contracts, understanding all of the elements. And I don't understand how Naperville, as one of the largest, or we are the largest customer of IMEA, we've got a different deal than some of the other communities who are in there, and it's not as good. So our contract expires, I believe it's in 2036. I believe there's also a 5-year notice period where we have to let them know that we're going to either renew or we're not. So there's a little bit of time to go there, but I think any of us, we all agree that coal is not going to be the future for electric, and we've got to figure out something in the long run. At the same time, we've also got to be very competitive against other communities to attract businesses, to attract residents. We can't have expensive rates that are well beyond our neighbors. So that's something we've got to be very, very conscious of. Now, with solar, I think there's a lot of opportunities to reduce our needs. The IMEA contract, as I understand it, doesn't require us to buy a certain amount every year. We just have to be a part of that contract. So there's a lot of opportunity for commercial customers, especially have these big roofs. My company's invested $7.5 million in solar, but we've got to look at it from a different perspective, because commercial customers in Naperville, they pay 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt hour, but they pay these huge demand charge fees. And until we come up with a blended rate or something to make it more attractive for commercial customers to go out there and invest in solar, where there's a payback, where they can explain that to their shareholders, it's just not very, very attractive, even with the incentives that are out there. So let's get something done there, and that will reduce our demands on coal.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, do you support the assault weapons sales ban ordinance as passed in 2022? Why or why not?
Well, I got to ask you, do any of us feel safer since July of 2022, since this ordinance was passed? And I don't think anybody could say, honestly, that we are any safer than we were in July of 2022. I believe the real question is whether you believe the ordinance is effective and if we are safer as a result of its passage. And as was warned, the passage of the ordinance, it resulted in multiple federal lawsuits and has not prevented the sale of one weapon so far. The litigation is going to continue and continue and continue. And now we have a superseding state law at the same time. As mayor, I would have done what I did as liquor commissioner. And back in the times when we had people stabbed in downtown Naperville, and we had fights on Washington Street, and we had a young man killed in one of our bars, Mayor Pradel empowered me to assemble all of the stakeholders, all of our police and our businesses, and we came up with a great group of people who came up with very creative solutions to these problems. Now, those problems obviously were solved. We don't have 10 squad cars in downtown Naperville anymore. We only have 1 or 2 on a Friday or Saturday night. Those 10 squad cars are back in your communities where they should be. We need to do the same thing to prevent mass shootings in our community. And I really believe that we have to have a blue ribbon panel that does something to prevent anything like that from occurring in Naperville. I mean, have we asked the questions? Did the clear and present danger warnings that were filed by Highland Park and lost with the state police, I'm sure we have those that were filed with Naperville police and then sent down to state police. Did we ever check to see if those were lost in their files? Have we looked at mental health notifications? Have we created any sort of intelligence gathering unit that we could do with other communities? There's a lot of other options that would have been much more effective.
Thank you. Candidate White, do you support the assault weapons sales ban ordinance as passed in 2022?
Absolutely. I voted for that. And I'm actually very proud of the fact that we did that. In fact, it passed by a vote of 8-1. So the vast majority of the council did support that. But here's the deal. The number one responsibility for any elected official is the health and welfare of their community. And that is the reason, that is what really drove that decision. Now, will this stop the next thing from happening? It might have a little bit, but if someone really wants to do something, we get the fact that if they want to do it, they'll be able to do it. But one thing we will be able to say is that we made it a little bit tougher, and they did not get that weapon from Naperville. So if we can have any impact on that, given what has happened in our country over and over again, then I'm happy with the fact that we did support that. It was mentioned that it hasn't stopped the sale of one weapon. Well, we were under a stay for the longest. We finally got that lifted after the judge made the decision, a federal judge made a decision that law was that we passed actually succeeded. It was being challenged, and now it's been passed. It's not an assault weapons ban in Naperville. It's assault rifles, to be more specific. But even after we've done that, the state followed suit and they've created a more stringent law banning assault weapons. So it's more stringent than what we have here in the city of Naperville. So I think we should continue down that path. I'm willing to work with others to ensure that we're doing other measures to keep our community safe. Many people had a chance to voice their opinion on it. We had a city council meeting, 2 big meetings, over 100 people came each time to voice their opinion, including the gun stores and most of the residents as well. So people had an opportunity to have an impact on the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate White, what are the top 3 financial priorities for Naperville?
Well, first of all, I will tell you, the first thing we need to do is ensure that we maintain our AAA rating when it comes to finances. That's so important. And then we do that by ensuring that we have various different revenue streams that come in. We have sales tax, we have retail taxes, I'm sorry, our property taxes. Those are the things that help to drive a nice balance for us. That also allows us to borrow at a much lower rate. That AAA, if we maintain that, it's going to be a huge for us. During the pandemic, for example, we actually were able to borrow money and do bonds because the rates were even lower than they normally are. And with our AAA, it was almost like getting free money based on what those rates were. So I'm excited about that. I think the other thing we need to do from a financial standpoint is ensuring that we're bringing in businesses that help out our residents. When we have a nice balance of business and residential, it makes a huge difference to the tax base for what we have to pay. If you look at our 2 school districts, where 204 is financed at 84%, 203 is financed at 120%. It's basically because of the way the businesses are distributed throughout the community. And we need to do what we can to bring in more businesses into the 204 area. And finally, we need to make sure that we're helping and protecting our home-based businesses. A lot of our residents have opened up their own businesses at their homes, and we need to do what we can to ensure that we're not putting in measures that makes it difficult for them to get their permits and so on. In fact, I would advocate that we need to streamline that process so that they can be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, what are the top 3 financial priorities for Naperville? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Number 1 for me is public safety. It's the number 1 thing that everybody I've spoken to over the last year talks about. They're concerned about the safety of our community. It's the number 1 thing people talk about when they look at moving here. It's the thing they brag about. And as we look at public safety in our community, it's a very, very challenging time. We're having a real problem hiring cops. They're no longer applying to do the job. We're having the same problem with firefighters. Very, very low turnouts in our last application cycle, and we've already exhausted the list. That's very, very difficult for us to maintain. So I think we've got to get creative in those solutions, and it's going to take a lot to make that happen going forward. Secondly, infrastructure. Infrastructure is something I think we've been kicking the can down the road way too long. There's a lot of infrastructure that's failing in our community, and we've got a whole bunch of water mains that need replacement and other things that they just can't go on any longer. Naperville's got $150 million of capital improvement projects, including rebuilding our wastewater treatment plant and a phosphorus treatment plant program. We got a failing police radio system that's going to have to be replaced. Those are very, very big investments and some of the biggest in the city's history. And lastly, I love looking for non-performing assets on the balance sheet. And for me, it's all these vacant buildings, these properties that need to be redeveloped, especially in the northern corridor. We've got to get those back on the tax rolls at the highest and best. That's what will benefit our schools. That's what's going to reduce the burden on our taxpayers. And that's what's going to create the jobs and maintain the values of your home when we've got great people coming here to work in great facilities and work for great companies who are willing to keep Naperville rolling at the highest and best economic climate we can hope for, and kind of rebuild what we had doing so great in the 70s and 80s and 90s that put us on the map and got us the great schools we've got today.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, what, if any, changes do you recommend to the current process for making nominations and appointments to municipal boards and commissions?
Well, I think the process has worked for decades, and I really don't believe that the city needs a bunch of mini mayors making those selections. I think the mayor's job is to take applications for those positions, do the interviews, make sure people are truly doing these things for or applying for the right reasons. And what I mean by that is they've got to be qualified. They've got to be committed to showing up for the meetings. And they also have to understand what the commitment is about. So nothing is more frustrating for me is to watch a commission meeting where you can barely make a quorum, or you've got commissioners who are not familiar with the ordinances, or they haven't opened the book and they haven't studied what they're supposed to, when these petitioners are coming in with attorneys and all sorts of other resources expecting a good decision. So we got to make sure we've got committed people, and that's really tough to find in some cases. We've been successful with it over the years in finding those folks, but now with the different things that are attracting people's attention, we've just got to make sure that those people are vetted through and put up for the council to approve once they actually have shown the correct amount of interest. Once more, again, I look at this stuff and I think to myself, well, it should be a job interview for them. And they've got to prove to us why they're worthy to serve on a commission that could potentially hire and fire a police officer, or potentially approve or disapprove a $30 million project. Those are big, big jobs. Let's vet them properly.
Thank you. Candidate White, same question.
Sure, and I kind of answered this earlier, but the mayor does the appointing, the council does the approval of those appointments. And as I said before, transparency becomes key. I think you need to make sure you have folks who are qualified. You need to define what those qualifications need to be. And once you do that, you got to ensure that you're vetting them. We do criminal checks on individuals who are being nominated. But once that happens, we also need to do things that may not be criminal in nature, but it could be things that are just been said on social media that just don't make, that just wouldn't be a good fit. And again, the underlying thing is that they have to be aligned with what the city is trying to accomplish with our own mission statement. That should really be the litmus test. The system isn't perfect, but it actually works fairly well. Even if the mayor can make that appointment, but the city council folks, all 8 of us in this particular case, can weigh in and say yay, nay, or ask questions about why this person it should be or should not be. So there's some things we can do to make that better. But I would like to comment a little bit on the crime. I think we have got to be really careful about that. I mean, I just mentioned we were the safest city in America. I'm not just saying that. That's directly coming from our police chief. If you look at the data, I would encourage everyone, look at the data, see what it says. And because if we're not doing that, we have the potential of making decisions based off of bad data. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it almost happen where people were about to make some costly decisions based on perceptions that they thought were existing. And I think we've got to really be careful about that to ensure that we're getting accurate information out to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate White, what further efforts would you support, if any, to address affordable housing in Naperville?
Yeah, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm so happy that we just passed an affordable housing ordinance that basically is not telling our developers what to do, but we're incentivizing them to do the things that we need in order to reach that goal. We've been told that 10% is where all communities need to be from an affordable standpoint. We are currently at 7.5%. The current formula that they use really does not fit well for Naperville. It fits for all of Chicago. So we need to kind of define what that looks like for Naperville. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but we definitely have some work to do. We have some public land, not a lot of it left. That's a good option for that land. But the other things we need to discuss when it comes to affordable housing. We can call it affordable workforce, attainable housing, but we've got to look at what's happening with our seniors. Our seniors, for example, a lot of them would love to move out of the big house after the kids are gone and move into something a little bit smaller. But it costs money to do that. The cheaper option is to stay put. That's affecting the turnover of homes. So those homes that generally would have been available for a young family coming in to want to take advantage of these great schools that we have, that's being limited right now because of our housing inventory. So we have to think a little bit out of the box in how we're going to address those types of issues. Another one I would tell you is I'm so happy that we just passed an ordinance or approval to build housing for our IDD community. A lot of people moved here to Naperville because of the special needs services that our schools provide. But now those young kids are now young adults, and we need to be able to address that need because they're our residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, same question.
Sure. The ordinance the city's been working on, it increases densities by right. It reduces parking ratios. It reduces the land cash donation to the park district by 25% against the park district's will, right? So I look at this and I say Naperville is the greatest community in America. And I know people want to live here, but as I've openly discussed, I'm an adopted kid. I wake up every day knowing Naperville is an awesome place, and it has the ability to change the trajectory of people's lives. I support efforts to bring affordable housing to Naperville, but to be right, it's got to be the right project and with the right characteristics and at the right property, most importantly. So these will not be easy decisions. Even a fence variance can get heated between neighbors, right? I mean, literally, a fence variance has to come before city council. But I'm not afraid of the hard work and building consensus in the community, in the neighborhood where the development would get placed. So it's something that the council needs to weigh in on. I believe the proposal the city has worked on basically outsource their role, and it's not appropriate. We can do better on it. So as a matter of fairness, equity, and ensuring good government, whether you're developing a market rate or affordable residential housing project with tax credits, the local approval process should be the same. And I believe development should be transparent. It should be open to discussion with the neighbors, and the city council should weigh in if there are variances and deviations from the standards. It should not be just an ordinance by right that a developer can back into, and then once we see something that they satisfy, it's too late. We can't make any changes because they've satisfied all the elements of the ordinance. So that's a very dangerous thing.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, what are your recommendations to make Naperville a more environmentally sustainable community?
Wow, there's all sorts of options on the table there. And I think education is going to be very, very important. But let's start with that coal plant again. Obviously, the coal plant, we've got to come up with a plan long-term to figure out what we're going to do with that facility down the road, how we are going to potentially get ourselves on a cleaner burning or a cleaner energy plan for our city down the road. So that's first and foremost. That could be years down the road. It's something we got to be talking about today so we can look at the options that are out there. But when it comes to the other things that are out there, I think, again, you can get creative, like I mentioned, with those commercial applications of solar energy. You can certainly incentivize people to convert to electric vehicles and do all the micromobility devices that are out there. But I think education is so important. We've got a great organization in Naperville called Nest. They have got a lot of educational resources that are out there. And just any homeowner who's got an interest in looking at things for their homes, I think there's a great amount of information you can glean just from doing research and talking to some of those folks. We all have problems with our houses, right, from time to time. And when those things break, whether it be an air conditioner or something else in your home, there's a lot of great solutions that can be very environmentally friendly. I mean, you can convert from traditional HVAC to a heat pump. You can convert from a traditional sprinkler controller to a smart sprinkler controller. I put one in, it paid for itself in 1 month. Those are things that are really easy to do, but it's a participation sport, and we can get people excited about it and get them to the table to educate themselves. That's what it's going to take.
Thank you. Candidate White, same question.
And thank you for the question. We mentioned in the previous question about our relationship with IMEA. We have work to still do there. That contract, as I mentioned before, is coming up, and we are going to have to make some really some tough decisions. But we need to make the decision if we're going to continue on with that. But we also need to have an alternative for our energy sources. So we've got to look through all those different options for us. I am excited about what we did with Nest. Since I've been on the council, I'm so happy that we were able to do that. They're doing a remarkable job. We actually went out and we put our, we didn't just talk about it. We actually walked the walk. We went out and we've hired a director that is actually handling environmental and sustainability measures for the city of Naperville. There was a lot of work for that individual to be doing, and we've actually gone on and we've hired another person as an assistant. So we have 2 employees that are at the city government who are actually working these particular issues. Those 2 individuals, along with the individuals we have at Nest, are doing just a remarkable job for our community. But I would agree that education is important. We need to, a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know. So we've got to let them know what is available for them. Nest can do a great job of educating people when it comes to that. When it comes to how do I get solar? How much would it cost for me to have solar? Will it cost me? Can I turn in the energy that I built up and I never had a chance to use? Those are good educational questions for people to be able to use. Also, we talked about electric charging stations already, having developers put those into to homes as they make new developments. And we need to take advantage of the new technology that's out there as well. There's a lot of things that can be done and that are available to us to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate White, what are your priorities and recommendations to address ongoing traffic issues in Naperville?
Yeah, that topic comes up quite a bit. Anytime we do a survey here in Naperville, the #1 challenge that we have is traffic. And I get it. I understand. I will also kind of tell you it's kind of a good problem, because, and I say that because it's because of the great businesses and the thriving community that we have, that people all want to come to Naperville. They want to go shop downtown and take advantage of the great amenities that we have down there. But I do understand that we do have the traffic issues. There's been discussion as far as parking on Washington, which goes right downtown. If that would open up traffic lanes in there. I know we have periods of time where you can't park during rush hour, for example. That's always a challenge because our business owners would love to have that parking near their business, because they think it may help or hurt their business depending on what we're actually are doing there. I think one of the other challenges we need to look at from a traffic standpoint is the speeding that takes place. And we had a lot of that, especially during the pandemic era. You could go downtown Naperville and the engines are revving, they're speeding through there. We need to do some things as far as putting in some traffic calming measures to help reduce the traffic flow and the speed that drivers are using. I've had discussions with community members who all have issues with that. They've had cars drive through their fences because they're speeding and seeing if the car can make a curve without slowing down, as an example. So those are some of the things we need to be able to do when we see that we have a lot of traffic issues from a speeding and people just abusing their cars. We are more of a complaint-based system here in Naperville. I think it's important that we let our police officers know so they can manage those areas during those peak times when it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, same question.
Sure. So traffic's been an issue ever since I've grown up here, right? And Naperville's grown from 30,000 people to 150,000 people. And we've got a much bigger community with a lot bigger arterial roads. And we've pretty much maxed out what we can do on some of those arterials, or there's projects in the way to max those roads out to get traffic flowing the best way. So I look at the latest and greatest in traffic management solutions, and there's some amazing software improvements that are out there. There's stuff that's coming. And then I look at our intergovernmental agreements and those things that we could do with other agencies that control other streets, like 75th Street's a county road. We've got Naperville, Washington Street intersecting with 75th Street. Those traffic management systems need to be managed in a joint effort. And we've got to have systems in place that are going to be latest and greatest, that can integrate with in-vehicle apps and other solutions that are out there to help get people where they need to go in the fastest and most productive way. I mean, real live stuff that can move people to a faster route or around an accident or some sort of construction site. That's what people are looking for these days. And we've got to make sure that we're taking advantage of all those opportunities. Naperville has stuck its nose into the Waze business, and they don't really maintain it very well when there's those true active roadblocks. So we got to make sure we're consistent with all that stuff and make sure that we educate our residents on the best ways to deal with it. But traffic's not going away. Unfortunately, the buses and the services for getting people to the train stations, they've the limited routes. I think it's going to be something that we've got to address as the future allows.
Thank you. Candidate Worley, how will you foster diverse council and community input on issues?
Well, the mayor's job is to listen to everybody, right? And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being a nonpartisan candidate for a nonpartisan office, right? You have to represent everyone in the community, regardless of what they look like or what religion they practice or what party they're in. And that's been really fun for me, as I've met hundreds and hundreds of people from throughout the community and got to hear what's on their mind. So I think those things are very, very important for the mayor to go out there and listen first and respect always, because there are groups in our community that do not have a voice or feel that they don't have a voice. It can be everything from somebody's race or gender to somebody's religion, or even somebody's neighborhood where they do not feel that they have a voice. And we've got to reach out to those folks, make sure they do understand they can talk to us. We're listening. And it's just a matter of good communication, kindness, and being an available representative to handle whatever is on their mind. That said, we also need to make sure that those folks have a voice at the table. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to boards or commissions or other different groups that are involved at City Hall, they need to have representation from those areas. And I think that's very important for the mayor to consider in some of the appointments. Is we have to have people who are qualified, but they also need to come from areas that need to have those voices available.
Thank you. Candidate White.
Again, thank you for the question. I've been championing diversity since I've been in the community. It's just a passion of mine. In fact, I started an organization since I've been on the city council called Naperville Neighbors United. And it's all about bringing people together from different backgrounds, different races, different sexual orientation, all in an effort to get to know each other a little bit more. We understand that although we may look different, worship different, have these different differences, we recognize that through conversation, through courageous conversations, we understand that we have way more in common than we have that's different. I've championed the efforts for the community to change, or I should say to update our city's mission statement to where it now reads an inclusive community that values diversity. The whole point being that people should all feel like they belong and deserve to belong in our community. That has spearheaded efforts to do other things. For example, for the very first time, we have a DE&I manager in the city of Naperville that is going around asking the right questions, doing the things that our city staff needs and that our community needs as well. We've taken our Fair Housing Commission, and now it is the Human Rights and Fair Housing Commission, so that we can address issues as they pop up, similar to what may have occurred over at the Buffalo Wild Wings, where which was a horrible incident. And the individuals there did not even live in Naperville, but it happened in Naperville, so we owned it, and we were doing things in order to make that happen. I think it's important that we all have a voice. It's not just race or religion, but also political perspectives, I think, should be valued as well. You know, if we talk about this being a nonpartisan position, I totally agree. I'm a nonpartisan person. I'm an independent thinker, and I've been doing that since I have been on the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. So our last question tonight, we'll start with candidate White. Would you consider walkability and bikeability as a priority for the mayor of Naperville? Why or why not?
Yes, yes, I would. I would consider that a priority. I think, especially with we talked about the traffic as an example. I think another option for us is to really to think about biking. We can bike, we can walk, especially when the weather is pretty decent. Regular bikes are, people are doing it's great exercise, but e-bikes have become more and more popular as well. It's a great option. I've lived in other countries, for example, and I can tell you, residents in other countries, they love their bicycles, and it keeps vehicles off the road and really helps to reduce the traffic, as I mentioned before. I think it's also important to understand that when you're looking at walkability, we need to ensure that that the walk areas are safe. We've had individuals have been hit by vehicles. We had one over, I think, at Edward Hospital where someone was killed at a crosswalk. So those things have to be considered as well. It's important that we grab our transportation advisory board, as well as our TED department, to ensure that we're doing traffic studies, understanding what the impact might be on walkability and bicycle trails and so on. And then finally, I would say we have areas now in Naperville where unincorporated Naperville is blended right in with incorporated Naperville. So sometimes we can build something, a walkway, something to that effect. But when it gets to the unincorporated area, then all of a sudden it may have to stop. So I think it's going to be important that if we're doing that, that we coordinate with the townships to ensure that we can do that. Those become extremely important for our children as they're going to bus stops and so on, especially in the wintertime and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Worley.
I absolutely believe that bikeability and walkability are going to be important for now and for the future. They've been important for years. Back in 1997, I was the guy with the Park District Police who created our bike patrol program, and we put police officers on mountain bikes. We sent them all over the parks, all over Naperville, all over the Riverwalk, and we realized then how important, how effective it was as a patrol tactic, but also how effective it was to get around town. So now that we're in 2023, we've got e-bikes for police officers, and they can do even more efficient patrols. I've had great conversations with the folks from Nest, as well as several of our e-bike dealers here in town. Micro mobility devices, that's what these things are all referred to as. We've got to have good pathway systems that have integrated agreements with the other jurisdictions. I mean, we go into Will County Forest Preserve, DuPage County Forest Preserve, Naperville Park District, City of Naperville. They're all integrated, but you can't have one path dead end at another and have different rules and things that just don't work together. So there's got to be a lot of intergovernmental cooperation. There's got to be a lot of great planning, because I think these devices are here to stay. I think they're great tools and they're a lot of fun. They get people out there, they give them some exercise. Even though they're e-bikes, you get exercise. So it's great to see people out there for their well-being, their mental health, as well as their commute. It's a wonderful way to enjoy the city. Walking paths continue to be very popular. I particularly have a home in an area where I can walk into downtown Naperville, or I can walk to work, or into a Force Reserve. Those are the things that make Naperville different than a lot of different communities. And I think those are absolute priorities for us to continue to do right.
Thank you. So let's go to our closing statements. We go to you, Scott Worley, for your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. And again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this tonight. This has been a great opportunity to share some of my thoughts about why I'm running for mayor and talk about some of the issues. When I started this back in January of 2022, I made a commitment, and that commitment was to run as a nonpartisan candidate for a nonpartisan office. I was not going to endorse other candidates. I'm not running on a slate. I'm not running somebody else's playbook. I'm going to run as me, and I'm going to use all of my knowledge and background from living in this community all my life to contribute to being the best possible mayor I could. I've got a unique background, and as a business person who's had the great opportunity to lead people, I run a company that's got over 70% diversity in its workforce from top down. I mean, it's awesome to go to work because we all know what we're doing. We all have a great time. And when you see those things happen, add to my law enforcement background, add it to my banking background, where we've loaned money into our community. We've met all these great businesses and people who contribute to our community and understand them. It just makes me feel that I've got a lot of great skills that could certainly contribute to leading in a community that right now is going through a significant change. Half of our city council leaving, our mayor leaving. And when we look at those folks who were really there to guide us through the recession and the tough times, a lot of those folks are leaving the city council. There's people with 14, 15 years on that are going away. So I think the historic perspective of our community is very, very important. We learn from our mistakes, we learn from our successes, and we have great experience to lead our community into the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Our 2-minute closing statement from Benny White.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me today, and to the listeners for being here. When the Army moved my family here in 2005, I had no idea the trajectory in which my life would take once I retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2008. Honestly, my plan was to go work in corporate America, but the offer to continue to do similar work serving my country as a civilian won out. My record of service to my country and my community clearly shows that I am not a politician. I'm a public servant. Unbeknownst to myself, I've been training to be your mayor for the past 40 years, including in most recent years where I've been serving as your councilman. I have won 3 nonpartisan elections where voters have validated my independent, thoughtful decision-making, putting people first. My name is Benny White, and I want to be your mayor, and I'm asking for your support and your vote starting today all the way through April 4th. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Our time is up for this forum. Your participation as a candidate and as a voter is essential to preserving the democracy we hold dear. For more information, please visit the Nonpartisan Voter Guide, vote411.org, the candidates' websites, as well as the League of Women Voters of Naperville website. Please remember to vote on or before April 4th, as one vote can decide the election, and that one vote could be yours. Thank you.